Politics Knoxville. I'm Steve Hall, and with me tonight we have Greg McMillan, who is running for Circuit Court Judge, Division 4?
Division 4,
yes. Hey,
yes.
I'm getting better. I'll have this figured out. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am from Knoxville. I've lived here almost all my life. I am a graduate of Bearden Elementary, Middle, and High School. I went to the University of Tennessee for my undergraduate degree. I got a Bachelor of Arts in Biology, and then went to UT Law School, graduated from there in 1992, and I've been in private practice here in Knoxville since then.
Well, married, kids, wife?
Married. My wife and I have 5 kids between us. They range from, we had a birthday today, so from 24 to 12.
Well, happy birthday to whichever one it was.
I will pass it along to him.
Okay. Well, I have 5 too, so I know how that is. Why did you want to become a judge?
It is a question of service. I have always worked since I was 13, held a job, paid taxes since I was 13, and I have always been very service focused. I've held jobs, waiting tables, service industries, mowed lawns, those sorts of things, bartended, and as I began practicing law, it became clear that there was a service element to the practice of law. We're helping our clients, we provide service to them. The idea is that I can help 40 or 50 families a year practicing law. If I am elected to serve as judge, my hope is I can double that, 10 times that number of families, helping families get through that process more quickly, helping them through the crisis in their family to get on with their lives and be healthy and happy individuals again.
Okay. I think we have a caller. Caller?
Yes,
You have a question?
I do. I want to know, Patty Jane Lay has been endorsed by Judge Swan and seems to want to continue the Fourth Circuit as is. I want to know, does Mr. McMillan believe that that is a good course of action, and elaborate?
I think that there are changes that need to be made. I think the court is not working the way it is. I think it takes too long for cases to get heard. I think that there are cases that are being sent to a magistrate who is a judge that hears child support matters that could be heard by the court and speed up some of the determinations for people so that their cases work faster and better service is provided to the people in Knox County.
Well, thank you, caller. I think we have another caller. Caller? You have a question? Caller?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear very well. Listen, I'm actually calling in because I've never actually even heard of the Fourth Circuit, and I was wondering what exactly is this court, or what does this court do?
Okay.
This is a division of circuit court that by special arrangement handles domestic relations matters, appeals from juvenile court. And by domestic relation matters, you have original jurisdiction over divorces, you handle post-divorce matters involving changes of custody and child support, and you also have orders of protection that can be heard there, as well as I said, appeals from juvenile court. So it is all about families and children in this court. That is what we are limited to hearing and what we handle. Does that answer your question, caller?
I guess it does.
Okay.
He's gone. Folks, we are live tonight. That number is 215-2288. We'd love to hear from you. Ask Mr. McMillan anything you'd like to about his candidacy, what his plans are when elected, and let's go from here. Just tell us, what are some of the things you would change? I know you talked about just a couple, but I've heard you speak before, and you mentioned several more.
There are several. One of the important things is actually for this court just to meet more often and more regularly. It is a tremendously active court, and it needs to be held regularly. People need to have a chance to get heard. We need to make sure that we are moving cases efficiently, that when they're set for trial, that they get heard without being unnecessarily bumped, and that all of the cases are given their fair hearing as quickly as they can be. I would want to change some of the procedures with the way cases are scheduled and monitored and handled, and then also look at some of the way that cases are heard and the responsibilities for the people hearing them.
Okay. I think we have another caller. Caller? Caller?
Yes, you're running for Fourth Circuit Court, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and what qualifies you? What sets you apart from the other candidates? What qualifies you to make decisions about families about orders of protections. And why would you be better at it than your competition if you have any? You know, I mean, these are serious decisions. Orders of protections, children's safety, it's very serious business. So tell me what qualifies you for that position. Thank you, and I'll listen to your comment.
Thank you. It is a tremendously serious position, and I'm not going to say that it is an easy thing to do to sit and make these decisions, which I've had the chance to do as a special master in orders of protection matters, and also as a special master sitting and hearing matters for Chancery Court. My qualifications are that since 1992, I have practiced family law here in Knox County. That has been the primary focus of my practice since then. It's what I do, and what is important in doing that is listening to your clients, knowing the law, which is easy to do if you've studied it and you practice it and you work with it daily, and then applying the law to those facts is how you govern your decision, and you make the best decision that you can based on all the facts that you've gathered and all of the things that you had, and then you simply make the decision and hope for that it's the best. If you make an error, hopefully you'll have a chance to fix it, and part of it is being honest enough to know that when you've made a mistake, you need to correct it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, caller. I think we have another caller.
Hello?
Caller? Yes.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question.
Go right ahead.
I wanted to ask if it was true that Fourth Circuit was really overloaded with cases, and if so, why does he think that is? And what's he going to do about it?
Well, the public's perception certainly is that Fourth Circuit Court is overcrowded given the length of time it takes to get a case heard and resolved and dealt with. Whether or not it actually is open to interpretation. I know that a great number of the divorce filings over the last several years have been filed in Chancery Court rather than in Fourth Circuit because of the perceptions of problems in Fourth Circuit. To address that, you're really going to have to manage your docket better. You're going to have to set deadlines, see that deadlines are followed. You're going to have to monitor cases more closely. You're going to have to work with the other agencies in Knoxville to make sure that all of the services are provided and that the needs are met and scheduled more efficiently. Court can be held, and then we'll see whether or not the docket's really overcrowded or whether it just could be run a little bit more efficiently with more attention split between some of the cases before it and making sure the assets and the time are actually allocated correctly.
I hope that answers your question. Well, that was we've had several very good calls tonight. You mentioned something. And I don't have any idea, what kind of a staff does a judge have?
I have a secretary.
Okay.
And that would be it. There are law students from the University of Tennessee who are qualifying for and are serving as interns in the various trial courts now, and so that is an asset that probably would be useful for research and somewhat in helping prepare cases, brief cases that are coming before the court for consideration.
I was just wondering, because you started talking about management and keeping up with all this stuff, that just seemed like a large thing for one person to do, and which essentially is what it sounds like you would be doing.
It is a large thing, but it's not so much that it would be like anything else. If you know what tomorrow's docket is, you read the files, see what the issues are, what you're going to be dealing with, what they filed, look at the law so that you're up on what's coming in, and then you move through those cases efficiently.
Okay. I think we have another caller. Caller?
Hello?
Yes. You have a question?
I've got a question, yes.
Go.
I get the impression, from what I've heard, that Judge Swan, and I kind of want to get the prospective judge there to answer this question. I get the impression that he's overusing the power of order protection.
You know, no person, spouse, romantic interest, child, should be a victim of domestic violence or be in fear for their safety or well-being. Everybody is entitled to security. The orders of protection are a powerful tool to help secure that. There is a tremendous risk of misuse and oppression available as a result of that also. So I don't know that it's abused so much as that it needs to be very carefully monitored. And one of the changes that I'd like to see is making sure that there is more of an opportunity for review of those if a special master And for those of the people who may not understand, the order of protection docket is so full that on a day that is scheduled for order of protections, you will have the judge sitting as well as 2 or 3 other attorneys who are also hearing these matters. When they hear it, they are sitting by special agreement, volunteering for the court as a special master. Their cases that can then get objected to, and then the judge is supposed to give them a review of it after 15 days, an opportunity to file a written objection. I think that process is being overlooked, and it needs to be monitored so that we can make sure the best results are happening for people who are victims of domestic violence and or the people who are accused of committing domestic violence.
Thank you, caller. That brings up a good question. I used to go in the courthouse a lot more than I do now, but used to on Thursdays, you would see it would look like hundreds, and I'm sure people brought people with them and stuff like that. Are there that many order of protections cases that are being heard?
It is hundreds of people.
Okay.
If you think about a case that has 2 parties and there's 50 cases, you're already up to 100 people.
Right.
If there's a witness for one of those cases, you're up to 150. More than often than not, there's more than one witness, and then they do bring their support networks. So yeah, you will have 300 or 400 people there, and yes, there will be 300 or 400 cases that can be heard probably between 100 and 200 in a day on any given day in order of protection court. Knox County has more orders of protection than Davidson and Shelby County. And so we are the county in the state that has the most domestic relation cases and activity in this court.
Do you think that we're more violent or more prone to violence here than they are in Davidson County or in Shelby County?
No, I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think that this court and this area is perhaps more sensitive to trying to solve the problem before it becomes an issue in a family and working through that process, which is a good thing. As I said, nobody needs to live their life in fear of injury and or that their safety isn't going to be taken care of. So that's the first thing that statute's designed to do and what the court must do.
I've heard from some friends and acquaintances. I've been very fortunate. I've been married for 42 years, and I don't plan on ever visiting your court in an official capacity. But that when these child parenting classes that I think it's mandated by the state.
Yes.
A certain amount of time. Is it 4 hours?
There is a requirement for parents to take a 4-hour parenting education class, yes.
But that in Knox County, typically it's much longer than that. Is it 12?
Yes, Fourth Circuit Court has a local rule that requires a 12-hour class to be taken rather than the state required 4 hours.
Where did that, is that like, will you have to continue, not even asking you whether you would want to or not, but would you have to go with the 12?
I would not have to. It would be anyone who's elected can make that choice, but there are alternatives. I've been receiving materials and looking at materials about online classes that are available at no cost and resources that are available and with reporting requirements just like there are for the parenting class so that you would know that they've worked through it, that can be turned in, they can be done on their own time at their own pace and with no expense to the parties. And that offer probably better feedback and more resources. And in today's world, almost everyone now has access to a computer, some of them on their phones, for example.
So these parenting classes, just to clarify something, what are you actually talking about in a parenting class, and who conducts them?
They are not parenting as you would think. It's not about setting bedtimes. It is about how your divorce process will affect your children, how they perceive it, what you are doing that hurts them, what you can do to cooperate with your spouse, and how to cooperate with your spouse as you're divorcing and becoming 2 families to minimize the involvement of the children. And it actually is a very good course. It is taught by trained professionals, social workers, some psychologists of that training background who work through some materials and help explain that process. They use some videos and some vignettes. And I will tell you that when the course came out and I sat through it, and I've been through it a couple times since then, there is a video of a little girl or little boy, I can't remember which, and he's on the phone with one parent telling them about trying to coordinate something, and the other parent's yelling at them on the phone, and he's passing messages back and forth, and you want to cry when you watch the little boy and the emotions that he's going through while his parents argue through him.
Yeah, well, that doesn't sound like a pleasant experience. And that's what these courses are designed to teach you, to prevent you from doing that kind of stuff. And
they're hopefully going to open the eyes into things that you don't perceive as being harmful but can be to a child.
okay. Well, folks, we are live tonight. That number is 215-2288. We'd love to hear from you. Ask any questions you'd like to about Greg's candidacy or anything about the operations of the court. I mean, believe me, until I started interviewing these judicial candidates for this, I didn't have any idea what the complexity in getting a divorce and all that kind of stuff that you go through.
Well, and most people don't. To be honest, this is the court most likely that people in Knox County are going to have interaction with. Maybe not personally, hopefully, but as an employer, they're going to have employees going through this situation. As church members, they're going to have members of their church. As employees, they're going to have fellow employees who are not at their best because they're going through this process. And so this judge is a tremendously important position, and the people really need to think about their choices and make the choice that they feel is best for all the citizens of Knox County.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any idea how long it took to get a divorce, and they tell me it's even takes a lot of time if you agree, if there's assets and children and stuff like that, all those stuff, the judge has to approve everything.
Yes. In a basic divorce with children, the court's going to have to do probably 3 things, maybe 4. You have to end the marriage, you have to divide the assets and debts of the marital estate, you have to provide for the care and support of the children, and there may be an alimony issue that has to be determined. All of that's going to take time.
Okay, hang on one second.
I think we have another caller. Caller?
Hello?
Yes.
Would it be better, more efficient to make it harder for people to get married? So you wouldn't have as many divorces?
The sound was quieter when you started. You asked me if it would be better to make it harder for people to get married so there'd be less divorces, correct?
Right.
That's an interesting question. I believe that there is a benefit to premarital counseling, which most churches require, as well as a period of getting to know each other. I believe there's a tremendous education that goes on, and I think that would be of benefit. I don't know how you make it harder for them to do that, but some sort of real-life organization would be a good thing for them to do that. Yes.
Thank you, caller. I've heard, and it's just been talk, that in some states that there's something going through to make it extremely hard to get a divorce. And I don't know all the details, and you may have heard of what I'm talking about, that it's just not as easy. Now, right now, even though it's a fairly complicated process, it's something that can happen. I mean, if one person wants out of a marriage, there's going to be a divorce, is my understanding.
Generally, yes. That's probably a fair statement, that there will eventually be a divorce granted. Now, if there are absolutely no grounds, then marriage may not end when you want it to end, but it will. Even living apart for 2 years without children is a grounds for divorce. So there will be a grounds for divorce at some point. And what you're saying, and perhaps what the caller's saying about, is I've heard of covenant marriages where you sign at the beginning of the marriage to seek a divorce only in the grounds of violence, unfaithfulness, or, not, this is too hard and we're not getting along anymore, so that's not a basis for ending the marriage.
Well, the reason that came to mind, being in the legislature, I get people calling with suggestions for everything, and this lady had called me and asked me if I'd heard of this, and I just talked to her for about 5 minutes, but she, in her brief rundown, and she told me the state, and it escapes me, that have made it to where it takes at least 2 years to get a divorce, and that they try. It sort of reminded me of maybe what we did 20, 30 years ago in this country, where it was not easy. It was actually hard. And she's going to send me the information and the actual legislation that they had enacted, and I hadn't got it yet, but I thought it might have been something you had heard of. It just sounded to me like, though, that especially if it's an abusive kind of marriage, where one person is abusing either physically or mentally their spouse, that'd be a hard call to say you've got to stay with them. I don't know how you do that.
Well, and I don't know for certain, but I have worked with people who out of North Carolina, and I believe that at one point North Carolina required a 1-year separation before the divorce could be granted. So,
And that could be.
And so we have a 60-day waiting period from the day a complaint is filed till the day a divorce can be granted if there are no children, and a 90-day waiting period if there are children involved. So, it's not as if we can decide to get a divorce, file the paperwork, and get it done all in one day anymore.
Right.
There is a period of cooling off and thinking about things.
Okay. Well, I think we have another caller. Caller?
Yes. I have a question for Mr. McMillan.
Go right ahead.
It seems there's been a lot of negative stories regarding the Fourth Circuit Court and Judge Swan over the past decade. And I was wondering what you would do differently as judge.
Well, there are a number of things I would do differently. I think that court needs to be held regularly, that when a case is scheduled for a setting, it doesn't need to be bumped because other things have come up. I believe that the cases need to be managed a little bit more closely. For those people who don't know, federal court has a very, very strict calendaring schedule. You take a complaint, you get an answer, you set a trial date, and you start working back from that. And there are schedules, and if you don't meet them, the judge does really unpleasant things to the attorneys and to the litigants regarding their cases and what proof they can put on and what proof they can't put on. I don't know that you need to micromanage it to that degree, but I believe that you can make sure that the attorneys are focusing on getting the discovery done so they know what the assets are. Focus on getting the issues resolving the children addressed and dealt with. And I believe that the court often can have a single issue that is holding up an agreement being reached. It may be the value of a business, or it may be whether there's an inheritance or a separate property issue. And in those cases, there ought to be the ability to have a hearing on that little point or points so that the parties will have that ability to know what the court is going to do on those so that the other issues can fall into effect. If not, they're having to trying to figure out what they want to do with their assets based on what they believe a court will do without uncertainty, and that holds things up. I think you can do some of those things, change that procedure, allow hearings on limited issues with limited focus and testimony by scheduling cases a little bit more conveniently, using more trial settings on a day, having more motion hearings, changing motions from arguments on law to arguments requiring testimony and having them on separate days. So the court is always in session hearing something one way or the other.
Well, thank you, caller. We're getting down to about 5 minutes here. I'm going to give you an opportunity toward the end, in about a couple of minutes, to ask people to vote for you and to give you some way to contact you. And the reason I'm mentioning that now, so they can get a pencil and a piece of paper and be ready for when you give some type of contact information, whether it be email, website, phone numbers, whatever you'd like to give out. And but how is your campaign going?
It is going really well. This is not something, this is the first time I've ever set myself up and sought something like this. I have been a service giver, provider in service, but I've never sought really and truly to lead. I've worked for Habitat. I've been a crew leader. I've sat on Boys and Girls Club boards. I have always provided service. This is the first time I've actually sought out a leadership position. And I am enjoying immensely meeting the people of Knox County who I don't know, who I wouldn't have known but for this process. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying having the opportunity to explain my reasoning, why I would like to serve Knox County as a judge, and getting to know what their concerns are and hearing from the people who I'm going to ask to entrust this court to me.
Well, I have ran one county-wide race in my life, and I'm here to tell you, you find out real fast that this county is very big. I mean, it's a lot bigger than you think. When you start trying to hit every street, and you can't even think about knocking on every door, but just just maneuvering around this county, going to the various meetings and the various appearances that you make. Are you finding that to be true?
Yes, I am. It is not unusual, and my wife is learning the hazards of this as well. It's not unusual to have 3 or 4 events at night, from as far west as Farragut to as far east as almost Strawberry Plains, and north clear up, and then down in South Knoxville as well. And I have put miles on my car, meeting people and hearing from the people in Knox County about what they would like to see for circuit court.
Yeah, believe me, it's an experience to run, and you said it right. You meet a lot of people that you wouldn't meet. By running in a district, it's easier to cover it. If you're in a smaller district race, you can hit the doors and meet the super voters, they call them, people that don't miss an election, and get to talk to them. It's virtually impossible to do in a countywide election. But you get to meet a lot of people, and today, we're not as friendly a society as I guess we once used to be. You just don't go down the street and say, I think I'll just knock on this door and introduce myself. This gives you a reason to do that.
Yes. It does, and it's tremendous when you do knock on a door and somebody has heard of you or is interested in your campaign and gets to do that. And I don't know how much time we have left, but
we got 2 minutes.
Okay.
So you can start into giving your pitch as to why people should vote for you.
Well, they should vote for me because I have the experience and the work ethic and the desire to serve Knox County and the people of Knox County. I believe that the Fourth Circuit Court should do a better job of helping the families that come in crisis before it to work through those crises and get some certainty and some completion to their divorce, to their post-divorce litigation. I believe it can be done more quickly and less expensively than it is currently for those people. I believe that I can remove some of the roadblocks that are being set before them to resolve their cases. I would love to hear from people. I can be found on the web. I have a website, McMillanforjudge.com. There is an email function there that you can email me, and I'll be happy to respond to all of the emails that I get from there. I'm on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com, it's Elect Greg McMillan. There is a YouTube channel, Elect Greg, that has a 1-minute video that I've put together about the reasons I'm running and the idea of service to Knox County. And there will be additional postings on that in the near future, helping explain my campaign and those sorts of things. If you reach through me, through my website or even through the Facebook page, I will be happy to get back in touch with you, answer any questions that may not have got answered tonight, or talk with you further. Happy to talk with anybody who reaches out to me and to respond to any concerns that the people may have or questions about my campaign.
Well, good. Well, I guess you can volunteer to help. There's ways to volunteer to help in all kinds of ways.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
If you get on the website, there is a place for that. If you'll give us your contact information, we are happy to take volunteers to help spread the word about the campaign. As the campaign nears, we'll be having signs being put up, meeting in the community, those sorts of things. We would love to have that opportunity.